they're cutting holes in it to help it sink. They took all the portholes out. Oh, look up, they're cutting the funnels off.
Oh, they are.
Mom, look, you see the cutting torch there?
All right, there she is, the SS United States. Her nickname was the Big U. And at 990 feet complete, she was 100 feet longer than the Titanic. She made her maiden voyage on July 3rd, 1952, and on that voyage she did beat the transatlantic speed record, which had previously been set in 1938 by the Queen Mary. She traveled across the Atlantic from New York to Southampton in 3 days, 10 hours and 40 minutes. No other ship has beat that record. So we are looking at the fastest ocean liner on the record. Now the story goes that the ship's captain ordered his crew not to exceed 60% of the ship's power. You don't want to know what the reason why is to go
Oh, yeah, well, probably should have had.
Go up and come back and build a faster ship. He just wanted to do it one more time. However, his competition never did build a faster ship. Thus, you're looking at the last American-made ocean liner that is still above water. As we make our way down to the stern, I do want to call your attention to the propeller that you may see on the deck. Size reference, that is 18 feet in diameter and 11 feet tall.
Colors are still
About the size of a small rod.
Are they going to sink the prop with it, or are they going to
The
sink
force
it?
bear is still out.
Are the rest of them still hooked up?
So that prop is the last original prop.
Oh, there's about 30 guests who paid to come and see the ship. I think you want to see the ship.
Props were sold off for scrap. Now the four spares, they were sent off to different locations. 3 are in the New York City area, and 1 is in front of the National Maritime Museum in Newport News. Oh yeah.
Are those dry docks?
They have moved that shit.
Oh, the funnels will probably be coming off sometime.
Just hang tight, okay?
Depends on when the
Get
crane
over to
gets
that side in a minute.
But that doesn't matter. They can be replicated. They can be put back on.
All right. So I don't know how it started on this. The propeller was designed by a female engineer by the name of Louise Kaplan.
Well, you didn't have the opportunity. No, but I'll keep you informed. I'll let you know.
All right, from this angle here, I'd like to point out those 2 smokestacks on top. Those funnels are the largest ever placed on an ocean liner. They're 55 feet tall and about 60 feet in length. And as you can see from this angle, they are designed in the shape of a teardrop. The fins on top were placed there to keep the smoke from coming back down on the decks behind them.
John, a little trivia.
Yes.
Are the funnels raked the same degree?
No, I would say.
No. Forward funnel's 10 degrees and the aft funnel's 11 degrees.
Really?
Forward funnel has shear, so it looks like it's 11 degrees.
What's that? Okay, so
the only wood in it was a piano, is that
yeah, we're going
correct?
to talk about that in just a minute as well too.
We all did our homework.
We've been doing some research here, so this
There's some other wooden things hidden.
this ship is owned by the county of Okaloosa in Florida, and their plan was to sink it, or is to sink it, off the coast of Destin. because they paid $1 million for it and then allocated another $10 million to have all the work done that they felt like was going to be needed here. So in Mobile here, their job is to remediate this ship and to remove all hazardous materials that may remain on board, such as oil, fuel, asbestos, any PCPs. All the glass is supposed to come off, as well as the ship railings, and they will be removing the 2 funnels on top as well as the crow's nest. So they want to sink this in about 200 feet of water, and their thought is that it's going to be the largest artificial reef in the world, as well as a place for divers to go in and explore some of the upper decks. Now, it's been here in Mobile since right before Mardi Gras this year, so the beginning of March is when it came in to Mobile. So they've been working on it, and as you can see, a lot of the portholes have been removed.
Are they brass?
Yeah, was there brass on those portholes? I'm sure there was. Ones up top were
A lot of aluminum inside.
So this ship is constructed of steel. It's a steel-hulled ship, and then the panels on the upper decks were made of aluminum. This was the first ocean liner to feature the aluminum panels on the upper decks, and that made it a little bit lighter than what ships were at the time, and probably contributed to the speed.
You can see the joint between the steel and aluminum right below the prom deck windows. Steel, and then everything above the windows up to the top of aluminum.
All right, the ship could hold 2,000 passengers, plus a crew of a little over 1,000. But it was also a secret weapon for the military, and in times of war, it could be converted over in 48 hours to become a troop transport, in which it could hold 14,000 troops.
No, I don't think so. They haven't even started on prep work inside the aft one. They might have done some work inside, but they haven't done any cutting. The forward ones that have done cutting. You can see a guy inside that doorway right there. Right inside the doorway.
The ship was designed by William Francis Gibbs. He is a world-famous naval architect who never studied formally naval architecture. In fact, as a small child, his father took him to a shipyard where he fell in love with ships. He started drawing ships, and he became widely regarded with the Navy on his ship designs. Now, he wanted this ship to be a fireproof ship, so he ordered this ship to be constructed entirely of metals. So we have the steel hull, we have the aluminum panels, but he wanted all the furnishings to be made of metals as well too. And that does include the piano. He ordered an aluminum piano for this ship, but when George Steinway heard this, he called for a meeting with Gibbs. And during that meeting, he brought in a mahogany piano, which he doused in gasoline and lit on fire. And as quickly as the flames spread across the surface of the piano, they extinguished themselves based off of the coating that the piano had been treated in, and because of that, the piano was the only wooden object on board this boat.
3 little holes underneath the fins in the funnel. Those are lookouts where they could spot submarines.
Really?
Yeah.
We'll have to go get some new batteries for this line. I think the rain.
What?
Rain
Up a little bit.
That was the anchor, yeah. It shows how big the chain was.
Yeah, really.
Well, I'm avoiding that. It's just the gangway. That starboard anchor is somewhere in the Sea of Marmara off Turkey.
Sea of Navarro.
Marmara.
Navarro.
But I would think someone would have retrieved it by now.
If they get an idea, they'll drag for them. Anybody want an umbrella? I got two.
I'll get ready to walk back in.
You guys are all good?
Thank you, sweetie.
There you go.
All right, did y'all notice those letters on the back of this ship? The SS United States, the letters each are 3 feet tall. Exactly. All right, it looks like the captain has taken us across the river where we're going to see some naval ships, and we've seen some activity since Sunday over here. So let's talk about these ships. The first one we're going to see is the Medgar Evers, which has been in Mobile for about a month or two. And it's in here for some service work to be done on it. Don't know exactly what work is going to be done, but I do know it's going to be service work because it's at the Alabama shipyard, and that's what they do here. I do have a feeling, though, that this ship will be getting a paint job, in the fact that I see that they have removed all of the lifeboats, and it looks like they're preparing it to be painted. So that is a dry cargo ship, and it's about 10 to 15 years old. But I don't think that they don't have any ice cream on board that ship today. We're coming up to the Douglas B. Mackey, which is a push tug, and in front of it is a dredger built in Panama City, Florida. And at one time, this was the largest dredger ever built. It's here in Mobile for the dredging project to deepen the Mobile River channel and widen it as well. No, it's a separate project. But if you know anything about how these dredgers work, they will go in there and they'll pump out the dirt and the silt on the floor and load it up on that dredger. So as you look at the side of it there, you're going to see, once it starts filling up, it's going to cause the dredger to start sinking. So the Douglas B. Mackey is independent of the dredger, so that way it stays at the same level at all times. Now, we have an empty dry dock here, and just a minute ago, when I looked over there, there was still water on the floor of that dry dock, but they just moved out this ship out of that dry dock. Now, the ship we're going to be talking about in just a minute here, you may have heard about it recently in the news because the Naval Commissioner wants to change the name of the Harvey Milk. And yes, that is the Harvey Milk that he wants to change the name of. Now, the Harvey Milk has been in Mobile for several months now. It was here for its PSA, or post-shakedown assessment. I cannot believe how fast they raised that dry dock too, by the way. Because literally when we were on the other side of the bay, I looked over here, there was still water on the floor of it. But the Harvey Milk will probably get a new name in the near future if everything goes as they planned. We just don't know what the name's going to be yet. This is an oil refueling ship. And this ship is only 4 years old. And it can hold up to 8 million gallons, no, I'm sorry, 3 million gallons of water. Not water, excuse me. Fuel, sorry. I was thinking about the water on the floor. So this is the first time I've actually seen the stern of this ship. Because it's always, it had its bow facing out in the dry dock. But that is a floating gas station, and its job is to go out at sea and to refuel ships that may be out at sea. But let's look at the Bighorn right next to it, because that is a previous class of oil refueling ships. In fact, the Harvey Milk, that class replaces this class. The Bighorn was built in 1980, and just as recent as last September, it was in the Middle East, and it was the only ship refueling ships in the Middle East. And in September, off the coast of Oman, it did run aground or hit something, caused some damage, and water flooded the engine room. And so the Navy's decided that it'll have a fate very similar to what the SS United States is going to do. It will become an artificial reef. All right, we're coming up to the Uncle John next, back across the river here. This is an oil rig that spent a lot of years out in the Gulf. And about 15 years ago, the company that owned this oil rig filed for bankruptcy, and they sold off this oil rig during that bankruptcy. The company that bought it had left it out in the Gulf and didn't know what to do with it or had no plans for it, and so they finally decided that they will dismantle this oil rig. So that's why it's here in Mobile, and they are going to just take it apart piece by piece. All right, so now there's a blue, yellow, and white crane in front of us here. That crane can lift up to 64,000 tons. And it's been doing some work on a ship that sits inside that dry dock. And as soon as we make our way down there, you're going to get to see what remains of the Stride from Panama. Now, we've watched over the past several months that ship be taken apart. It was a complete ship when it went into that dry dock, but now all that's going to be left is pretty much what's left on the stern of it. Yeah, I think they must only be working at night on it. So while we're waiting to see that, I'll call your attention to that island that we see in front of us. That is Little Sand Island, marks the end of the Mobile River, beginning of Mobile Bay. And just directly in front of that is the turn basin for ships here in the Mobile River Channel. All right, there we have it. What's left of the Stride right there. Now, if you've heard about the summers here in Mobile, I've got the world's largest ceiling fan for sale right there.
Did you see this over here?
Oh wow.
All right, directly in front of us on the east side of the river, that is the steel mill where you see the
Well,
cranes
it's a big old
moving
prop,
back
isn't
and
it?
forth.
Yeah.
And ships do bring in
Thank you.
steel from Brazil and Mexico here into this port, where they unload them at the steel terminal. And then they load them onto barges, take them north on this river to where there's a steel mill and a stainless steel mill just north of Mobile, where they will press those into rolls of steel and sell them off to automobile manufacturers. Now the construction that we see directly in front of us, that is Austal's newest expansion. Austal is a ship builder here in Mobile. They're one of the largest employers with over 4,000 employees, but they just recently won a contract to build components for submarines, and that is where they will be building those as soon as they get the infrastructure complete. Now we're kind of making a flip around here, but I do want to call your attention to the container terminal, which is on the east side of the river. That is one of the fastest growing container terminals in the United States. They have completed 5 expansions over the past few years, and they are working on number 6, and you can see where that work is being done just right off in the distance here. But this container terminal has caused Mobile to be fast growing in the field of logistics as well too. Just west of Mobile on I-10, there are several logistics parks either under construction or in development at this time. In fact, Amazon is building their second warehouse here in Mobile, as well as Walmart, who has a distribution center here for their distribution centers. All those cargoes or containers come in and they're sent directly to these warehouses where they will then distribute them out. Now those cranes remind me of a fun little story. Anybody want to hear a fun little story? All right, well, back in 1977, Steven Spielberg came to Mobile to film a movie. It was just a little movie. You may have heard of it. It was called Close Encounters of the Third Kind. While he was here, he rented one of the hangars at the former Brooklyn Air Force Base so that he could construct his entire set for the final scene inside it. And word quickly spread around Hollywood as to what he was doing, so it garnered some attention, and one of his director friends came to Mobile to see firsthand. And so Steven decided to give him a little tour of that set. And his director friend was so amazed at what he saw that he told Steven that this was going to be the biggest thing that had ever been filmed. He said it's going to be a movie that people will be talking about for years to come. In fact, it's going to be so much bigger than the last movie that Steven had done, which you know now was Jaws, just a year before. Oh, look at there, they're removing a piece of that ship currently. So, but anyway, getting back to the story I was talking about. So Steven wanted to reassure his director friend that, you know, everything's okay, because he was worried that the project he was working on was going to just fall by the wayside after everybody saw Steven's movie. And he told him, he said, look, I've seen the dailies, you're doing a good project, just keep going. And said, in fact, he said, I don't want to see you fail, I don't want to fail. He said, so let's do this, let's make a little bet, see whose movie is the best, but nobody's going to lose. If my movie is a bigger seller, I will give you 5% of the profits. If your movie is a bigger seller, you'll give me 5% of your profits. And because of that famous Hollywood bet made right here in Mobile, Steven Spielberg makes money to this day off of Star Wars, and he never worked a day of his life on there. And that's right, his friend was George Lucas. And when George Lucas was here in Mobile, he saw the cranes that are very similar to the ones at the container terminal. It's not those exact ones because those are new, but he saw some cranes, and that gave him the idea for the Landwalker character. All right, right, so now, ladies and gentlemen, if you're on the bow of the boat, you've got the perfect photo op here with the SS United States in front of the Mobile skyline. And we were talking about movies. Let's talk about the movies that were filmed aboard the SS United States. I know of 4 movies that were filmed on that ship. Anybody want to take a guess as to what those movies were? I'll go ahead and I'll give you the first one. It was in the opening scene of West Side Story. You could see that ship in the background. Then in the 1960s, Walt Disney filmed a movie called Bon Voyage, starring Fred McMurray. And then, of course, who could forget this classic 1960s movie? Everybody should have already guessed this one. I'm talking about none other than the movie called Munster Go Home, which is based off of the television series The Munsters. And as you know, in that movie, Herman inherited a castle in England, and they took the SS United States over to claim that castle. But Herman spent most of his journey seasick, while Grandpa spent a lot of his time on the lower decks or the dungeon of the ship. Now, the last movie that was filmed on board this ship was in 2013. Colin Farrell was seen running down the promenade deck in the movie Dead Man Down.
It's a great movie. See it. Something else.
Sorry.
All right, here we are back at the SS United States. I do want to call your attention to some of the things that make this ship special. First of all, this ship is the very first ocean liner to feature a microwave oven on board. It actually had two, and back in the 1950s, as you know, microwave was the technology of the future. So they advertised that all your meals would be prepared on a radar range. Now my question for you is, who would book a cruise today knowing that all your meals would be microwaved? It was a big deal. So a lot of celebrities had traveled on board this ship as well. Bob Hope was on the maiden voyage. I know that Grace Kelly, Judy Garland, Walter Cronkite. We mentioned Walt Disney earlier. The Mona Lisa traveled on board this ship as she made her one and only tour of the United States. We had 4 presidents travel aboard this ship. Anybody want to take a guess at which 4 presidents they were? FDR was not one of them. No. That's right. Gerald Ford was not. Got to think about which presidents may have been alive during the time period she was in service, and she was in service from 52 to up to 1969. Eisenhower was one. Truman was the second. I got 2 more. I'll go ahead and give you Kennedy. John F. Kennedy was the 3rd one. And then the last one was Bill Clinton. But Bill Clinton was not president when he traveled on this ship. He was on his way to Oxford to study. All right, if you look to the east side of the river, I'm going to call your attention to some dry docks that are under construction. These are being built for the Navy. I'm not sure what the purpose is for yet, but we will find out soon. I do want to call your attention too, because we have just found out that the USS Enterprise will be coming to Mobile to be dismantled here. It's going to be docked, what we're told, just south of the SS United States. I'd like to take this time to let you know, if you think this ship is a large ship, wait till the Enterprise gets here, because the United States is 990 feet in length, the Enterprise is 1130 feet in length, and the United States has 100 feet across her beam, whereas the Enterprise has 130 feet at the waterline on her beam, and on the deck 250 feet. And it will stand about 250 feet out of the water as well too. Which what we see here is about 155 feet out of the water. This one right here, so it's 175 feet from the top of the funnel to the keel, so that's about 55 feet.
Okay.
So, when the Enterprise gets here, it's going to be about 250 feet to the top of it. Right, if you look at the east side of the river, you're going to see the last littoral combat ship to be built here in Mobile. That's the futuristic looking ship that's just beyond that.
Got my home in Northern
Prior
Liberty.
ship made the movie. They really were, because that ship they were just working on the very first one of them back in 2010 when that movie came out. And what we learned later is that there were a couple of animators from Mobile that worked on the project, and we believe that they had seen these ships being built, and they brought that idea to Pixar. All right, now we have the Vanguard over here in the slip on the east side of the river. This Vanguard is a little small ship. It's all aluminum clad. This is a fully autonomous vessel. Meaning it's a drone ship. Be remotely driven for up to 90 days at a time. The building that you see in the background, that is Oster's manufacturing facility. That's where they build components for all the ships. Once they get all those components built, they move them over to the assembly bays, which are located on the river. And that's where they build the ships. There's nothing down there. That tunnel in sealed sections, rolled them down into the river on those steps, floated them up to where the tunnel is located, and then sunk them in place. Once they got all of the sections laid out, they started at one end and bored out the ends till they completed the tunnel as we know it today.
Thank you.